Welcome back to TAO Talk, where we dive into the weekly ebbs and flows of Bittensor. AI training is taking place on the network, and we attempt to answer the question on everybody's mind: was that the bottom for subnet tokens? I'm your host 563, and this week I'm excited to have Brody back on the show. How's it going, man?
What's up, man? I'm doing pretty well. Been enjoying my subnet summer by taking time off of really looking at subnets hypercritically. No, but yeah, got back from touching some grass. Fortunately, I'm back in the cockpit now. Expect more TAO times to come out on a consistent cadence. Locking in on x.com as well. I'll be posting a lot more there here soon, and feels good to log off, think about things, come back on with a fresh perspective and with much more vigor and optimism for the tasks at hand. So I feel good. I feel fresh now. I feel like I came back, and I was scrolling through Discord and scrolling through our Twitter lists and just realized how much has been going on over the past few weeks. And it's taken me a long time to compile a list, even for this week, of things to discuss. And I'm really excited to go through all of it. I think there's a lot of things that have happened over the past few weeks that we haven't discussed and people aren't particularly even aware of. And I'm excited to dive into the week's news. How have you been, though?
Doing good, man. Yeah, like you said, there's just so much to go through. We just don't have enough time to go through here. So I'm glad you're picking TAO times back up.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things and developments that deserve commentary and highlighting that I'm excited to write about this week. Specifically, Uniswap v3 pools going live, revenue, token buybacks, some of these new subnets that are interesting that I don't believe people fully understand, and a lot of cool just news research was published. A lot of new sources of media were also released in the past few weeks. Revenue Search, those guys at DSV are absolutely grinding. We tried to get Siam on today, but he was doing a revenue search, and he's done I think 4 or 5 this week already, like crazy. So I got to go comb through all of those because I think that that's a really important topic. And 563, you might disagree with me on that, which we can get into later. But I think that those guys are grinding. Sammy and Seth and David Lowy at Unsupervised Capital have released their own podcast as well. Score Vision has as well. Max at Score, they released, starting to do a podcast. So a lot of new cool media and research to dive into, a lot of articles as well. Siege posted an interesting article about the missing TAO on route. Neuromancer posted a cool article about revenue. It's just a lot of cool things that I missed that I'm like, hey, I need to get back in the action and start writing and talking to people again. Yeah, and a lot of new interest is being onboarded into TAO. Like, I was in the office, the Manifold office yesterday, and there's a couple family offices, fund managers in there, and we were talking about DTAO and TAO more holistically and what the value proposition is of decentralized AI and how to get interesting exposure. So I think there's a lot of net new interest coming into the ecosystem, and people with large bags to allocate are really looking into TAO now seriously to figure out, where the best opportunity and how to split their stack between root TAO, subnets, what the kind of investment and price target is for some of these subnets, and what to look forward to, and in regards to subnet development, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of cool stuff has happened. I'm glad to be back, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, man, we got lots to go through. So let's break open the week's headlines. I wanted to touch on Templar first. They dropped this really super impressive optimizer. So for folks that don't understand, with pre-training on distributed networks, really the bottleneck comes down to how quickly each of those nodes in the network can communicate updates to each other. So you train your model on a piece of data, and then you have to share your work with everybody else in the network. But that can be super communication intensive, and that's usually the bottleneck when you're training over the internet. So what these guys have done is they've taken a couple different methods, found out the good parts of each, and have like come up with this new method called CC Loco. I think it's chunk compressed low communication, and basically they've taken Demo, which is part of Noose's families of optimizers, and they've improved it by like 15x. So it's like 15x less communicative, and they're able to train so much faster across networks, and it's super impressive to see, state of the art being built on Bittensor.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I still have yet to dive into from a technical perspective, just because there is a lot to bite off when it comes to distributed training. But as far as I know, this is the one and only live, permissionless, incentivized distributed training um, scheme, mechanism, system, whatever you want to call it, project that's live. And that's really impressive. And as far as I know as well, I think they're moving on to larger parameter models here soon.
Yeah, this is an 8 bill model they're doing now.
And I think the key takeaway here from this piece of news is that a lot of the fundamental stuff that's being built on Bittensor is flying completely under the radar simply because of the distributed nature of the marketing and the product marketing aspect, and the distribution is just scattered, distributed. There's no single foundation coordinating the message, right? And I think that this provides a really interesting asymmetric opportunity from an investor perspective to like really to jump in here and dive in and understand actually what's being built, talk to Sam, talk to the people building this stuff, figure out the roadmap, because these guys are devs. There's no like, there's like, there are one or two, maybe sometimes 5 or 6 devs on a team. They're so to some degree resource constrained. All of the resources go into like the actual development of the technology instead of a salesperson, a marketer, and so forth. Like they're working on hardcore engineering problems. All of their effort, all of their resources pour into figuring out how to better optimize their technology. And their product releases and product announcements are a tweet thread, and that's all you'll hear from it. And unless you go into the Discord and you actually engage with these guys, you don't really know what's on the roadmap, what's kind of coming down the pike. So there is a ton of information asymmetry if you take the time to research and understand this stuff and talk to people and network and try to figure out what's going on, because that gap and that delta of opportunity will shrink as the market caps of these grow, the resources grow, and you can hire on a product marketing team and so forth. Like that'll become priced in to a degree. So I think it's great. Like that there is an edge to be had in Bittensor if you take the time to really dive in.
Yeah, man. I mean, the tech is the hard part, and they're working on that first before getting this giant bullhorn, as opposed to some other projects out there. But
Right.
I'd love to see this. And yeah, like you said, just go into the Discords if you want to see how hard these people are working, because it's insane. So shout out Templar team. Keeping on the same topic of training, going to the post-training side of things, Gradians drops their version 5. Now you can train up to a 70 billion parameter model on Gradians for $400. That's like 96% cheaper than you can do it on Google. It's really crazy that you're able to do this on a blockchain right now.
Again, crazy, kind of similar sentiment towards what I said about Templar. Yeah.
Yeah, same kind of idea, but it's
Yep.
and like going back to the whole revenue idea. I mean, this goes all back to buying back the token. So I think Gradius is among the first to do that too.
Yep. And now a lot of other teams are starting to follow suit. Targon is, correct me if I'm wrong, Dippy might be as well. Sports Tensor is. Neuromancer posted an article about this. And maybe we can drop the link in the description to that article, but talks about all that. And of course, they're talking about it nonstop over on Siam's account at Revenue Search. So
yeah, it's good. It's all coming from there.
Do we have a segment on revenue in here?
We do.
Okay, I'll wait to comment further.
Yeah, man. But yeah, shout out to Gradians team. This stuff really is super cool. And another case of state-of-the-art training being done on Bittensor. It's becoming old hat at this point. It's cool to see. Speaking of training, we're just on the training like roundup here. Dojo fine-tuned a model from their human feedback data over on 52. So with the TensorPlex team, they've taken that, and I think they've trained a Quen model, and it's really cool. It can create really visually stunning UIs because like humans are pretty good at telling you what looks good, what doesn't look good, and machines aren't that great. So that's why they've used like human feedback to understand what looks good from a user interface perspective. So super cool use case. I think this is exactly what they should be doing to showcase the work here.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect use case for it. It's such a subjective thing. Like front end design is such a subjective, it goes back to the whole conversation about the edge as a human is taste, and design is subjective. Of course, there's like you go to design school and there's some objective reasoning with what constitutes a better gradient over another, or button placement on a UI. But you have to gather a lot of human feedback to coordinate, what looks good and what doesn't. And this is a perfect example of using reinforcement learning for something that is objectively human taste coordinated or human taste oriented, right? So great work here. I mean, it's incredible. This was something that I saw and I was like, I just scrolled over it because I didn't first glance, I didn't notice what was going on. And then I read CK's tweet and I was like, oh wait, this is actually really cool. And yeah, threw it in the pile. So great work, TensorPlex.
Yeah, I love seeing it, guys. And I think more stuff just like this is exactly what we need. And yeah, super cool. And I hope they host the model over on Shoots so we can go play around with it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, man. I know a lot of people were excited for this. So do you want to go through why TAO app shipping TWAPs is such a big deal?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, it lets you finally not have to use a script to DCA into subnet tokens, because and it just gets frustrating trying to DCA yourself, because if you're going, even one TAO at a time, it's it takes 15 to 20 seconds to confirm the transaction. So you're sitting there for a bit to size into a position. Previously, it was challenging to size into stuff because of low liquidity. So you really did have to go half a TAO, 1 TAO, 3 TAO at a time to size into a position. But now I think you can do larger orders in some of these subnets. So and have limited slippage. But this is cool for people who are trying to size in, 100 TAO, 200 TAO positions into subnets.
They get front run, right?
Yeah, they get previously you get front run. So you can do that through the UI now. Not sure how they're technically doing it on the back end, because I'm just not sure how they're doing it with through a non-custodial way. But TAO Stats, I want to give a shout out to them too, because they also released, I don't know if they released a DCA TWAP feature, but they released limit orders.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. Super cool.
Okay, cool, sweet. But yeah, just better infrastructure and tooling around different types of orders is really good. The pools are, pretty mature in their liquidity profile at this point. So that'll be advantageous for building a lot more interesting products infrastructure around. And I know that TAOFi is also doing interesting stuff with seeding pools on Ethereum, the EVM, the Bittensor EVM, and figuring out ways to make alpha much more composable. So it's great.
Yeah, man. And I think them and Void are both working on fiat to TAO or fiat to alpha tokens. So getting a lot more tools in the tool belt. Love to see it finally growing up. But yeah, man, let's talk about the top movers for this week. Out of the top 20, we had Ready AI leading the pack. Yeah, people must have enjoyed. I think David was on a novelty search last week. I wonder if that's any part of this. He's just being part of the conversation, which definitely helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and quantum is a net new, interesting idea, so no surprise there. What's the word on Celium? Just a
I
revenue
think they just,
play?
yeah, I think they just have really low sell pressure from their miners since it's most of the alpha tokens don't go to miners. So,
Yeah.
and there's no real reason for them to sell it. It's I don't know. I think it's just that mechanic. But yeah, they shot up to number 2. So very firmly in the
Yeah.
number 2 spot too. So very impressive from the Celium team.
Cool.
Yeah, man. I'm excited for, I mean, cautiously excited for the quantum stuff because I just don't know enough about it. But
Man,
from
it's
what
complicated.
um,
I'm like trying to learn about all of these new pieces of technology. It's like, it took me like a while to like get past the learning curve of understanding AI fundamentals, right? That over like the past like year or so. And then I'm, starting to look more into robotics, starting to understand more about like longevity stuff. Quantum is on that list now. Cloud seeding is another thing that I'm like looking into more.
cloud seeding.
Yeah. I don't want to get into that here, but we can talk about that offline. And there's just always something new to learn about, which is cool, but it's also kind of overwhelming at points too. And quantum is one of those things where I heard Chamath explain quantum like on an all-in podcast talking about qubits and mechanic. And I'm just like, man, this is just a whole other rabbit hole that I never took a physics class. So it's going to be a very much a 0 to 1 moment for me. So, hey, ape first, DD later, I guess, on 63 for me, at least, if I were to allocate. But like, nonetheless, just really cool that we're getting like just crazy new use cases. The design surface area on Bittensor is truly unlimited. We've got new mining subnets, like what is it? What's it called? Metahash. Yeah, stuff like that's cool. Merit is cool. I think Merit rebranded the OTC desk-ish type of subnet, just like super creative stuff. And I always like to say, crypto incentivizes max creativity and AI enables you to be maximally creative. So it's a good combination.
I like that, man. Yeah, but yeah, I'm excited for the quantum stuff, but like I said, I have to learn more. Apparently they just officially launched. So maybe that's what the big hike up here in value is for. They launched with they called it peak circuits benchmark, which is gibberish to me, but sounds pretty cool.
Peak circuits.
Yeah.
Sounds bullish.
Yeah. Sounds bullish. Sounds bullish. Awesome. But yeah, let's step back for a second here. The last couple of weeks I've been going through and just asking the TAO agent from Ready AI just to give me the weekly update. And it's really, really good. But my takeaways really were legacy subnets underperforming. So like UIDs between like 1 and 20, which is interesting. I think
That's weird.
Yeah, right. Like I wouldn't really expect that during times like this. And people are pretty quiet on the new subnet front. Do you think maybe it's just they're waiting for better market conditions to launch?
That's is the cap still on?
The cap is still on, but it's like this was checking new GitHubs and that sort of thing.
Got it.
Yeah. But there are like signs of life, right? Because some of alpha ticked up. Fear and greed is going back towards neutral. So I'm kind of wondering, like, up only from here.
Well, I hope so. I mean, the 1 through 20 underperformance stat, I think that makes sense, right? Because those subnets have benefited from, I guess, an abundance of TAO flowing into the pool. So in order to move those pools or move those prices, it's going to take a lot more TAO to move them. And the low liquidity pools have a chance of obviously a performing above the median or average and median performance because of their ability to be moved with such less tau. So if you take the average of those, I think, maybe there's some math that you take the average of those 21 through 128, and those have outperformed the 1 through 20s simply because the volatility is much higher.
Yeah, it could be. It's like it's less Pareto. It's more
Right. Exactly.
just spreading out of the tau.
Exactly. But nonetheless, this TAO agent's super cool.
You can ask it like crazy questions too.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but I just asked for the weekly update. Really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely check it out. Great work from the Ready AI team on that stuff. But yeah, this is on the other part of stepping back from the network. Do you want to go through this piece at all?
Well, I don't want to butcher Message's interpretation of this, but basically how I interpreted this, and you can go read the article yourself. We'll tag it here, and you should read it. And I need to read it again because I skimmed through it. So if I mess this up in any ways, it was out of the goodness of my heart, not ill intention at all. But there was an accounting error that basically miscounted the amount of tau en route after every protocol upgrade was pushed. And there were about 5 protocol upgrades that were pushed. And you can see on tau stats, the amount of tau en route goes down, or it is demonstrated or shown as going down every protocol upgrade. And the biggest one was maybe 2 months ago? And the sum of that missing 400K, missing tau was 400,000. That was still held en route. It didn't go anywhere. It was just not calculated in the chain's calculation. So as a result, they pushed an upgrade that recounted the tau, and I think root prop shot up because of that. And
yeah,
now
not
it's
by
back
a
to
lot. Yeah,
not by a lot.
like you said, it's just an accounting thing. So nothing really changed. It was just certain analytics on the chain.
Right.
Nothing counting.
Right.
The root tau.
Right. So you can go back in and learn why that happened. It was something to do, with upgrades being pushed. And now it's back and fully represented. And shout out to Message. Doug from TAO Stats as well was involved. Space Time was involved. A couple other people. Message gives credit to Xavier. All those guys, shout out to them. Their investigative skills are helping us out here. And I think one of my takeaways is like the intimate understanding of how the Coinbase or the emissions cycle and mechanism works. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go back and read it myself because I want to become more acquainted with how the actual emissions mechanism works. And this opened my eyes to a lot more going on behind the scenes than I initially thought there was going on, specifically around the mention of staking to root. You're technically like staking to root alpha, and it's like a different representation of tau. Yeah. So kind of a lot of interesting stuff. So recommend going to read this for sure.
Yeah, I thought the interesting part was fixing the bug, like moved back the halving from January to February. So that was like the big change, I guess. But like, I think it moved root proportion by like 1 or 2%. It
fixed the halving.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it fixed the halving. So it was just an accounting bug, and now it's fixed. But kind of a cool story if you want to go check it out. Good write up by Message here. Awesome. And I want to end us here. Quick one today, just on give me a reason why. Got 3 scenarios here. You give me a reason why this could happen, Brody. You ready for this?
Oh, I got to do it. Okay.
Yeah, man.
Fine.
This is why you're on the show.
Fine.
All right. Give me a reason why subnets bottom here.
What's some subnet tokens? I know it's a pretty imperfect measure.
Yeah, but everyone uses it as well.
So might as well check it's like technical analysis. It's like you're just trying to figure out what everybody else is using so you can determine when the best time to buy or to trade off a signal is. All right, it's 1.24. So give me one reason why. Well, I don't have a great reason why. I think that the introduction in the catalysts of revenue could spark renewed interest in those subnets that are buying back and burning their token. That could be one reason why subnets are bottom here. Is consistent buy pressure. Granted, you have to consistent buy pressure from the subnet owners themselves buying back the alpha, and also people feeling comfortable, like institutional or not institutional, but just investor capital flowing into subnets at this level because they're comfortable with the downside risk in relationship to the APY that they're earning on the subnet. Or the APY that they're earning through holding alpha. So that could be one reason why, is because the upside it looks pretty good in comparison to the downside when you combine the APY when it's around 100, 110%, whatever it is per subnet. So that could be two reasons why. Other reasons why Bitcoin is performing really well. It's signaling a more risk-on environment throughout just markets in general. The S&P is performing really well. I think we're going to get a rate easing cycle here in Q4. Not that markets really respond to the federal funds rate anymore, but generally liquidity is going to pour into the system with this big, beautiful bill. So I think there's a couple macro tailwinds that you could point to that could entice investors to go more risk on and venture further down the risk curve, which would be subnets. The market caps on these things are incredibly small as well, which could be interesting if you wanted to do TAO beta. The concept of pure play decentralized AI is kind of hard to capture in the markets in general, because what are you your alternative is to buy NVIDIA at like $3 trillion, or some of these infrastructure plays like CoreWeave and so forth. And now that we're getting these interesting digital asset treasury vehicles publicly traded for TAO, I think that could be an interesting play, a pure play for decentralized AI, if not AI, for a lot of institutional investors who don't necessarily want to try to custody their TAO or buy it on chain and stake it, or whatever it is. They can just go buy one of these DATs. So those could be, and that value, of course, flows into TAO, which flows into subnets, and it kind of just trickles down from there. So those are like 3 to 4 reasons why I think subnets could be bottom here. I'm still patient. I still think like holding TAO is pretty, long tail exposure to AI as a whole. And subnets themselves are challenging to pick. And investing in TAO, you're getting, that broad index exposure to the subnets, and picking a winning subnet is definitely like kind of like a venture style investing, where you're going to have to invest in a broad bucket in order to ensure that a couple of those hit and you make your returns. And right now, I think that if you are kind of, figuring out how to allocate to subnets, I wouldn't really rush it. I think sitting in TAO en route isn't a bad play for the majority of people, unless you have a really significant edge in subnet investing, like some people do, who spend a lot of time thinking about it and networking the teams. But your fund mandate is, across a lot of different assets, equities, and so forth. I would recommend just dipping into TAO first, just getting acquainted with how things work, and then venturing further down the risk curve once you feel comfortable and informed.
I like that, man.
That's a long-winded answer, but
no, yeah, you I felt like I set you up pretty good there.
Yeah, cool.
I totally agree with the fact that like broader market is being reinvigorated. So I think that's like a reason enough to start looking at, some subnets that you think have deep value at these levels and building a position that's not. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. I'm personally doing that. Bobby Beans left us some wonderful TA. Let me bring this up.
Bobby Beans. Is this guy English? Oh, yeah.
So cool. There you go. There's your answer, man. TA.
We're breaking out.
We're breaking out on reserves over injected. So that's all you need to know, man. Appreciate that, man.
What's the date on this? Is this, how long does this go back?
This is today. Oh, how long does it go back? Actually,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's kind of, you can't tell from the axis.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like it is finding a bottom here. I've been observing this for a little bit, and I don't know. I mean, I
Goes
guess
back
we'll,
2 months.
yeah. Okay, cool. We'll just have to wait and see. Again, like I think I tweeted this the other week. Like I do think that if you are trying to level into subnets combined with the APYs, it does look somewhat attractive right now. Do we go lower? Maybe. Does it go higher, like off the rip? We see some tailwinds and catalysts, maybe. Is it going to crab for the next 3 to 5 months sideways? That's kind of like the stance that I'm taking.
Gotcha.
Which again, like some of these APYs are pretty attractive. So it could be an
Yeah,
opportunity to scalp some of your high conviction plays.
totally, man. Yeah, and Marco asked the pertinent question: what's your time frame for holding Bittensor, or what should somebody think when they're entering a position? How about
Man, my
that?
time frame for holding Bittensor. That's a great question. Um, I have a thesis on the concept of decentralized AI as a whole that I'll, maybe tap into in another episode that goes in line with my time frame for holding Bittensor. But 563, what was your follow-up question?
Yeah, what should somebody think about when they're entering a position in general? Like, probably not as a short-term play, especially if it's like a large percentage of a portfolio.
Yeah, I think the strategy that I've taken is to be involved. Obviously, like
Right.
having a significant stake in something gets you bought into the mission, gets you involved. That's why I write the newsletter. That's why I do this show. It's because I want more people to get interested in it, answer questions when I can, like this one, and so forth. So I think that that's the best strategy if you're taking a long-term perspective on an investment, is to just get involved, meet people, get excited about stuff, post stuff, etc. Be an evangelist for your bags. Work for your bags, bro.
Yeah.
And TAO is like a multi-year trade for me. So I truly believe in everything that's going on here, which is why I'm obviously here and why I have a sizable position. And the strategy for me is kind of like, these are all early stage investments at the end of the day. So you kind of got to look at who's driving the project, what's the community, is it a cult / bootstrapped? And I don't want to use cult because I think it diminishes the core message of what's trying to be built here. But is there an avid community who wants it to succeed, who's contributing to success? And I think that that's like the strongest indicator for a project, is you're investing in, like typically in ventures, like I'm investing in the founder. At the end of the day, like the idea is great. I'm investing in the founder. I've got 50 checks I need to write this year. I'm going to write 50 checks to really strong founders with really great ideas. Maybe 2 of those succeed. And if they succeed, they'll do really well. That's kind of the stance you have to take on some of these plays in early investing in general. But also at the same time, the more you know, the less you diversify. And I feel really good about TAO from a multi-year perspective.
Good answer, man. Totally agree. But speaking of that, I want to talk about revenue. So give me one reason why the talk of when revenue goes away. Because it does seem like whenever a subnet has an update, there's always that question of how does this bleed into revenue production? And I feel like,
I think you have a good answer.
well, I think it really depends on the project itself, right? Because these are super early stage projects. So I think asking when revenue to like a seed level project is kind of short sighted. I think revenue should be part of the roadmap. But if it's like an R&D type subnet, asking when revenue is just kind of, you're missing the point, right? They're trying to build something novel. They're trying to discover something new. And off the back of those discoveries, then we start talking about revenue. Unless you're coming to Bittensor with like a business plan with an existing business, I think that makes more sense to ask when revenue. But I think people are getting too in their head about we need revenue now from all these things, because none of these things are amassing giant revenue and won't
Yeah.
anytime soon, in my opinion.
Won't anytime soon. I disagree with
Okay.
that. I think that the business models themselves are starting to mature. Okay, like let's take. I think Dippy is a good example, and maybe Targon would be a good example slash shoots and whatnot. But Dippy has a product that is proven in the Web2 space to work. The concept of digital companions is like a growing market. And
Right.
I think that that matures much quicker than a lot of people who maybe are older generation like us don't like, because we're not going to use it, but like this next generation
Calling us old,
of
man.
yeah, I'm calling us old men. Technically, we're unks here. But I think this product, the Dippy product, fits well with this new generation, and I think that this concept of digital companionship is growing really fast. And I think that there's a very obvious business model behind it. It's why A16Z invested like several hundred million, if not billions, of dollars into the concept of digital companions, backing projects that are building this stuff. And I think that there's an actual viable business model here. So I think a couple of these use cases on subnets actually have really strong value proposition to start collecting revenue really quickly. Dippy being one of them. And I do not have a position in Dippy either. Maybe I should go. I'm kind of like convincing myself to go get one because I've seen a lot of other people start to allocate to Dippy too. So I think you should go read the Neuromancer like
Oh yeah.
article again. Yeah, because Sports Tensor was another one in there that he shouted out.
That's his, isn't it?
Is it his? Oh,
I
well,
think
he's
so.
biased, but no, I'm kidding. But yeah, I think some of these things have a much better chance of finding revenue. But things like Templar or things like Gradians or things that are like the quantum subnets, like these aren't going to be profitable off the rip, kind of like what you said.
Never
These
knows it.
are like scientific discoveries that will take time to mature, and the business models around them are relatively unknown. And it's impressive in and of themselves that they are collecting any revenue, right? Because typically these startups just toss all of their money into growth, right? Instead
Yeah.
of trying to growth and user acquisition. And they don't turn the monetization switch on until they feel confident that the users are sticky, right? So, and or like they feel like they've captured a significant share of the market. So just wait on some of these cutting edge subnets. I think a couple of these other subnets have a really good shot just because the business model is maturing much quicker than we thought it would initially. And I think it's just a case by case thing.
I
So
agree.
I don't think the conversation of when revenue goes away anytime
I,
soon.
I agree. Yeah. And like you said, I think it's a case by case. And maybe people that are asking this to the wrong subnets just don't really understand what that subnet does.
Yeah, you can't paint like a broad stroke of when revenue across all 128 subnets.
Agreed. Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. Nice, man. So last one, give me one reason why you can just pick a top 10 subnet. Top 10 subnet maintains their rank.
Well, that's easy because the top 10 subnets will just maintain Pareto in their EMAs, right? In their emissions.
Over a long enough time frame, though.
Over a long enough time frame.
In a year from now.
That's like the cop out answer. I know the answer you want me. I know you want me to give you a real answer, but that's the cop out answer.
They'll just maintain their momentum, you mean?
Well, I'm saying like I said, all 10 will stay, but no, to be specific,
I would take the other side easily.
well, to drill down, I'll give
Yeah.
you a few that I think will stay. I think Open Kaido is going to drop out. Obviously, that one has been kind of in the public eye a little bit with their lack of GitHub repo / rewards that are going to the subnet. People will probably vote with their dollar here and start to become a little frustrated with it. So that might drop out. Obviously, Open Kaido is not owned by Kaido anymore. It's owned by latent holdings. So until they post the GitHub, people will probably stop feeling inclined to speculate on that.
Yeah.
To not be a negative Nancy though, I think Templar probably climbs. I think climbs or stays the same. I think what they're doing is really interesting, and it's at the forefront of what decentralized AI is attempting to be. So I think that one does well. I mean, Sam, distributed state, works his ass off.
They're bringing on new people too.
Works his ass off. Been shipping. Obviously, we just discussed that earlier in the shit segment. That probably stays. I think I have a couple of others that I think will stay, but I want to hear what you think.
I was just going to pick Shoots and say I think they are definitely staying in the top 10. I would even say probably staying number 1 for foreseeable future, just because of how sticky their users are. Like, they instituted this $5 minimum on accounts to prevent spam. Like, you don't have to pay the $5. You just have to have $5 in your account, so you can't spin up a ton of instances. And their metrics still look great. Like, people are still coming to the site and using their inference. So yeah, I think those guys are very strong, and I think it's going to be tough to bring them down.
Cool.
Awesome, man. That was fun, dude. Yeah, appreciate you hopping on, dude. Is there anything you want to plug?
No, that was it. I think that was a fun one. See, when I come back from a break and I have like
you have things to talk about.
I have things to talk about. I've been doing the research over the past week too, talking to more people as well. I think that generally it's good to take a break sometimes and to come back feeling fresh. TAO Times will be out tomorrow too, so don't miss that. That'll be probably a pretty thick one, and they'll probably be pretty thick from here on out, just given how much stuff's going on. So
yeah, lots of rumors of exciting stuff coming out, and I'm looking forward to that. Awesome, dude. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Like we said, be sure to subscribe to the TAO Times newsletter if you want an even deeper dive into this week's updates and updates going forward. We'll see you all next week. See ya.
Peace, y'all.